Haru, you beautiful internet and you superb creatures of the beyond. What do we have here? Is it a beautiful affinity photo? Well, you can use absolutely anything you wish, as I always said. The tool doesn't make such a big difference. You can use GIMP, you can use Krita, you can use Photopea, Photoshop, whatever you wish. Zoo. Well, maybe even Corel Draw. Corel Draw isn't that bad. It's old, but not bad. Zoo. What are we going to do today? We're gonna play with silhouettes, and it's gonna be a wild ride. I actually started taking notes for you guys because I have so many things to say, and phew, it's it's overwhelming. It started developing like into a really complicated place of learning, but still, I really enjoy it. So, before we start, let's take a moment to explain what's the big difference between Inkscape, well, between vector design and raster design. So, obviously, vector design means that you're going to put vectors around, and the vectors are going to connect lines between them, and then they're going to form a shape if you wish, or a line. While in raster design, you only paint directly on the canvas. You can also use something like the pen tool that acts exactly like in Inkscape and create shapes and whatever. But yeah, most of the time we're just gonna use the brush. And there is a brush in Inkscape as well. Well, a vector brush, but it's very difficult to paint with it. Well, not difficult, but it's different. While here, the brush is totally out of our control. I mean, we have controls on how to work with the brush. Just make it bigger. But the brush is more chaotic because if I'm going to draw a line, obviously it's not going to be straight. Sure, I can mimic uh, the way I can draw lines by making use of the software ability to create straight lines by pressing shift in my case and dragging it wherever I wish, even in an angle if I could, whatever. But that's not the point. The point is that our brain, as I said in my previous video, or in another video anyway, that when we draw, we're always kind of programmed to create lines, for example. So if I tell you, draw me a square, you're going to do it like this. What you have to do in reality, get another brush, is do something like this. This is a square as well, but I don't have to draw it in 4 lines when I can just scribble it a little bit like this and voila, I have a beautiful square. I can even make it even more squarish if I really want to. Which gives me much more control over how I want to design something. And both approaches are good, but I believe that this approach is the hard one. And this is the easy one. I write like, I don't know, a penguin. Um, and why is this hard? Because it's so easy to get lost into the details. Like, for example, if I start doing like, I don't know, a shape and then I have to do it in parts, and then I have to kind of do it like this and like that. So it takes a lot of time. And then on this shape, you have to come and fill it up like this. And then you have to consider, oh, what if I want to do another color underneath it? Like so. Then how do you do that? Because you have to kind of mix these two, and it gets quite complicated with lines. But once you have a shape, we can do it like in Inkscape. We just created sort of a mask, and we just draw inside the mask. So once we define the shape, we know that nothing is going to bleed out of the shape. Because in this case, you can see I can easily get out of my boundaries. But with the shape, we can keep everything inside of it. Obviously, we don't have to mask it. We can just use it for reference. But there are more benefits to having a silhouette. And one of the main benefits is that if we look here, if I want to mix these two colors, you can already see that there is a lot of the background seeping through, and it's pretty difficult to mask that. But when you have a shape underneath it, a silhouette, the silhouette also takes the function of blending your colors easier, so they don't so no gaps are in between them. Because right now, if I would draw, let's say, on another layer here, let's say I would have a silhouette underneath it, you already can see that the colors are already looking much better when they're blended in the middle here. So this is with the silhouette underneath, without the silhouette. Makes such a big difference. And it can give a lot of volume to your work, so you don't get tiny little holes through your design. Because, for example, if I would take this silhouette and let's give it a color, you can already see just with this color alone how many gaps you have through. And of course, this depends on the brush you use, the technique you applied your hashing on over the surface, and so on. And we're gonna get into all of this pretty soon. The important thing is to have the silhouette of a very specific color. Usually dark helps, but light silhouettes are also welcome depending on what type of design you're going for a lighter one or a darker one. And you can sometimes even mix it, and I'll show you guys an example of that. But the point is that silhouettes mask a lot of the issues that you are going to encounter. And obviously, we cannot see them very clearly now because the background is uniform, but when you have something else behind it, or if you're trying to overlap it with another design, uh, then you're gonna see the problems. So to avoid those, we're just gonna use silhouettes. Okay, this is the theory, obviously. Um, okay, so let me remove this. Now, one of the biggest issues that I see on a lot of tutorial videos and so on YouTube or wherever, they're always telling you like, so, or the number one question on those videos are like, what brush are you using? And I've talked about brushes in the past, and I'm gonna repeat myself, of course, but the brushes are in your control. You should not use a brush pack unless you really know what you're doing. Because brushes, believe it or not, this is the brushes that I use, only this. And all of them are basically the same round brush, but just with tiny variations in them. Like this one has more opacity, sorry, less opacity and less flow, and a little less hardness. That's all. If I go to this one is at a 100, 180. If I want something harder, just go 100%. Like it's this. And believe it or not, these other shapes are very situational. I use them very rarely. And if I do use them, I kind of use them for, well, let me give you an example. Let's say I have a shape like this. I might want to use this as an eraser. So I'm drawing directly on the surface. Now let me go like this again. Okay, so shape. That doesn't look. Not this one. Not this one. That one also has a little bit of a gap in it, of a distance between those. I'll explain in a moment what I mean. So, for example, I can take this shape. Maybe I want to complement some details on the edge like this. Obviously, there is a big difference between these two brushes when it comes to the feathering. But let's say I have this. And now I want to apply, I want to remove some of the elements that I have here. So I can just come here with an eraser. And this one I really like because it offers me the ability to kind of go around corners a little easier. Or if I want to go with something more specific than this, I can use something like, I don't know, something like, no, not this one. Like for example, I have some issues here. I want to go like so, make it a little bit rounder. Oops. Maybe you want to cut a little bit like this. And it just gives you a little bit of a shape control over how you want to erase. Now, obviously, if I want to just kind of match up this featherness, I just go a tiny bit like this with the smudge tool. Smudge tool is your friend. And there we go. We've kind of approximated it. Of course, if I have more things going, going outside, like little extra smudges on the periphery, just come and remove it like so. So this is why I usually have these shapes, these non-conventional shapes. Sure, in some situations they can help, but believe it or not, these are just simple shapes. Like, where is it? Like this one, for example, I can do for more straight lines if I want to. Or this one if I want to go more like this. But even the brushes can be rotated. You see, I can rotate them however I wish to create different types of patterns and whatever. So don't don't get stuck on how a brush looks or feels. And there are many tutorials out there to show you how to make your own brushes, and it kind of also depends from software to software, because in this case, this one is a bit different than Photoshop, for example, or even Krita on how you create brushes. And I'll just give you an example of how this brush looks. So this brush has a little bit of spacing between each stroke, each, well, yeah, not stroke, it's spacing in between like this. So for example, if I push this spacing more, you can start seeing that this is just a load of dots. And if I go here, I basically do the same. The only difference is in opacity and flow. This one is the same, opacity and flow. While here, um, I keep the spacing. I go with the same opacity and flow, but I change with the hardness here. No, actually the hardness is the same. So what's the difference between this and this? Oh, it's the flow. Sorry, yeah, this is the difference. So, well, this one, oh, sorry, the spacing, not the flow. So the spacing can make your lines a little bit more choppy if the spacing is big like this, or even bigger. And if it's to 1% or smaller, like 0, then it's gonna be pretty smooth. That's the biggest difference. Well, here I just focus on the hardness to be 100%. And like here I also keep the spacing low. I think here we can see how spacing can affect something. You see? And the flow is more about kind of how you want to feather it in a way. So yeah, there are many ways you can do a brush. And believe it or not, these brushes, I didn't create them. How should I say? I haven't created them from a specific. Like how do you create a brush? That's the important question. And you have two ways. You can either use a pre-existing brush and duplicate it and changing it. Like I can duplicate this brush somewhere here, new brush, duplicate brush, for example. And I can look at other brushes that are already out there and I can download them and change their properties. Or I can paint my brush. And if I want to paint my brush, let's say I'm gonna take a very hard brush like not this one, this one. And I can start painting it like so. So let's say I want to make a specific brush like this. I save it on an empty background as a PNG. And then I come here and I do new intensifying brush. And when I import the PNG, it's gonna just show up here as a brush. Obviously do it in black because that's how brushes are made. You need to make to have a black shape. Or even easier, you can just use like a rectangle tool and or brush tool. Sorry, a paint. Ah, I always want to say Bezier, but a pen. You can just create a shape like this, however you wish. Fill it up to whatever color. Well, black actually. And then export it, and that's it. Import it back as a brush. Simple, easy peasy. And why do I say it's better to do your own brush? It's because imagine I do my brush and I give it to you, and it's not gonna feel the same to you. You're gonna say, well, this brush, I just don't feel it how I can draw perfectly with it. And that's the thing. When you're creating your own tool, you know exactly how you want that tool to perform. You're not waiting for somebody to explain to you the movements of your hand because we all make lines differently. For example, I make a line like this. Perhaps you like to make it like this and then correct it with, I don't know, with the eraser tool. It gives you more control like that. But perhaps you like to use to build up your lines. So some people will go, oops, where is my brush? So some people will just go like, I'm not gonna just go with one line like this. I want to go like this and just till I feel like this brush is good, and then I want to remove the extremities. If I want to go full, then I want to remove the extremities, and it looks better for me. I've built a little bit of texture inside of it. Maybe I can smooth it out. Maybe I can add other colors then uh, over it, like so. So this is why I'm telling you, your brush, your rules. Let's put a little bit more. Come on, brush. your own rules how you want it to look. See, I'm just playing and making it however I wish. And this can mean anything to you. So your brush, your rules. Um, I talked 20 minutes about just theory. I know, but it's very important that we go through this because this theory can help your mind hardwire how you want to design. And let's get to something more practical, and I'll show you guys in a moment. Let me show you how powerful a silhouette can be. Now, as you can see over here, I've used some references here as for my helicopter. But the point is that you're looking at it. Let me just get this out of the way so we don't overclick stuff like that. You're looking at it from the full perspective. And you're thinking, wow, this looks really professional, really well done. Let me get a background. Something like so. So you can better see the mistakes, because there's so many mistakes in here that you wouldn't even believe. Um, Now, I haven't drawn all of it in one go because this is an assembly basically. So when you have an assembly, it's better to work with different parts on different layers. So for example, the propeller here on the back, I set it up separately. The propeller on the top, again, separately. Maybe I want to move it a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. And if I would go right now and disable my my silhouette, the color of the silhouette, ta-da! You already see that. Oh, this wasn't blending too great, was it? But that's the thing. You don't have to be good at blending colors because the silhouette just masks everything so nicely for you. You just have to have a uniform color. And what I mean a uniform color, I'll show you in a second. What the hell was this? Ah, back. Never mind. So if I would disable this is the silhouette that I have. So this is basically the silhouette of the helicopter. And inside the silhouette, we will never spill out the color because we're always drawing inside the mask. So how did I achieve this? Actually, it's quite clever. And this is kind of one of the reasons why I like um, Affinity Photo more than Photoshop. I used to be a very big fan of Photoshop, but I didn't realize how flawed some of the design, I don't know, techniques um, were implemented based on how the software was developed. And what do I mean by that? Usually in Photoshop, you have to create uh, a shape, and then you kind of have to use a mask layer on it. Well, on Affinity, you just draw your shape directly, and then you drag and drop new layers on top of this layer. Like for example, I'll show you here. So let's say I'm going to make this color over here. Yeah. Now, if I want to make this as a mask, I just drag and drop this layer over here. And if I start drawing with, oops, not like that, my brush. If I start drawing inside, you see, I'm not spilling anything out, which is really, really awesome. So now I can just mix colors and do whatever. And I always know that everything is contained inside my silhouette, my shape. Now, you have two options. If you want a very crisp silhouette without having to deal with feathering, you can obviously paint it. So I will go on a new layer, and in this, okay, brush, in this. So I'm at 100% hardness, flow, and opacity. And now I can just make my shape, for example, like this, if I want to. But obviously we're not gonna do it like that. We want to make a shape, which means let's use a different brush, something like this. I'm gonna make it like so. This one is feathered automatically because, a little bit anyway, because that's how I imported it. I put a little bit of feathering on my design. So let's say that this is the shape. Well, now, if I really want without any feathering, then I'll have to draw it, to paint it, like I said, with this, and that can be achieved by doing, I don't know, a general shape. So I will follow the same general shape, and then I can obviously go and erase the parts that I don't need. If I want to do them crisp, just do like this, 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 oops, like this, and like this, and voila, close enough. And now in here I can just start again drawing my other, my interior components, whatever. So it's really nice. Now this is one way to do it, or a better way to do it is to do it with the pen tool. And this is why I said that it's really cool that we can combine what we know already in vector design with raster design. So I can do a shape like so, which is gonna be uniform. Uniform. It's gonna be crisp, but I'm gonna leave the fill inside of it empty. And this is the important thing, because this is gonna act as a mask that we can change at will. So let's say now I'm just gonna fill it with, I don't know, this color. But now let's say I don't like the color. So instead of painting it, all I have to do is go and select my node tool, just change the shape a little bit, which is really awesome because we can combine here the beautiful part of raster design with vector design, which you're very familiar with. And this is super. I really love doing things this way. And you can apply it, like for example, you have a shape in mind or you have a reference, you can just trace the reference with your pen tool and voila, easy peasy. You then just fill in the colors how you wish. You just use the silhouette to keep everything into boundaries. Now, let's talk a little bit how silhouettes are very important to us, because we have silhouettes that you can look from the top view or side view or in a specific fixed pose. But then if you want an angled view, you also have to consider about how your silhouette is developing. So one trick to kind of keep the shape and proportions to look, I don't know, standard or normal or not very weird is to shift your canvas. And one way to do that is to flip it horizontally like this, and look at it from different perspectives. Of course, up and down, but I doubt you want to do that. And now let's think about how do you build in a silhouette, because it's so easy to say, oh, I'm going to build a silhouette and then I'm going to build up from dark to light, because that's basically what we're doing. Well, silhouettes, you have to think about them as boxes within boxes within boxes. So mm, let me look for an example. Let's say mm, what should I choose? Astronaut helmet. Yeah. Let's look for one that's well, we can. This one is a little bit. Okay, this one looks good. So let's copy the image and let's create a new thingy. Let's make this image a bit smaller. And now let's analyze over this. Like if you would want to do a silhouette over this, let me reduce the opacity here. I would do a silhouette something like so. Let's imagine that this one is continuous. And obviously you have many parts, but this is the interesting thing about silhouettes. Silhouettes, so this is one part of the silhouette because you can overlap silhouettes and do different parts. Of course, you can also do a silhouette that comes underneath it like this. And the cool thing is, like, sure, I can go like this over here to complement the missing space, but in this case, I'm just trying to prove the point of how silhouettes work. So you have to do it in simple shapes. That's the whole thing. All big, complicated things have simple, small elements. And what can we realize here? Well, aside from the fact that this is a reflection, but let's say that we're gonna make this a singular color that goes with a little bit of a shading here, like a little bit of light here and darkness here, shadow. The thing is that you have nested elements or nested, how should I call them? Artifacts? Details. Because in this detail you have this line and this pattern. So it's not that complicated. But if we look here, use a different color. Something like this. Here, we already have a different type of element that already has more things into it. So, for example, here you have the lights, and inside the lights you have other elements that go nested inside of it. So you can do even a mask for this one and create the smaller elements inside. Of course, this one is kind of bland, so maybe it's not the best example, but the point is that the eye usually doesn't comprehend these smaller elements over here, these smaller details. Like when I say these smaller details, I mean these ones go like this. But the thing is that if these details wouldn't be here, it would look like very bland or it would look off for some reason. And then your brain kind of registers that something's wrong, but it doesn't understand why it's wrong. Because when the brain looks at the how does the brain even recognize that this is a helmet? Because if you would be living in the Congo, let's say, and you've never seen an astronaut in your life, and I present to you this shape, you try to associate it to the closest thing that you ever saw. So maybe you saw somebody wearing a helmet that was spherical in nature, and then you would call it that thing instead of an astronaut helmet. So our brains are always developed in such a way that we try to associate it to known things. We recognize objects based on their on the memory bank in our brain that we have accumulated over our lifetime. So if this would be a cowboy, a cowboy, a cowboy, you would instantly recognize the shape of the gun, for example, the shape of the hat, the long coat. So you associate elements that are iconic, and but you don't look at the hat of a cowboy and see, oh, it has that pattern, that intricate pattern that goes around it or something like that. No, you just look at the bigger shape. And slowly, if you're really curious and if you're really interested about how something looks like, then you start zooming in. Maybe not like this on the canvas, but with your eyes. And you start taking in more of the design if you really find it interesting. And what makes a design interesting? Like, for example, in this case, this design may look interesting because it has a lot of elements going around it, like the reflection and so on. But if I would show you, I don't know, let's see. Yeah, this one is a good example. If we would look at this helmet, this one is pretty plain. Aside from these chords, maybe that make it a bit interesting, we wouldn't be much interested about this. And for example, let's say this would be an ArtStation search result. You would just scroll down until something picks up your eyes. Like this one. This one is a very beautiful design because it has many colors, many interesting patterns, many little artifacts, many little extensions, and so on. So it really pops into your brain. You instantly know it's an astronaut because you look at the recognizable shapes, but then you're like, oh, what is this? This I never seen on an astronaut helmet. Maybe this is a camera, or maybe an apparatus that brings in oxygen. I don't know. And then you're like, oh, what's this? This is like a nice little device that you wear on your wrist to read data and so on, life signs, and oh, what are these? But at first sight, you don't register these things. You just look like, oh, this is a chest piece, but you don't go. Let me see if I can. You don't go like this. This is Matt Damon, isn't it? Don't go like this to see, oh, look at this pattern. It looks so rad and so cool and so awesome. Or like these things, like how it was built up, and oh, this is a rubbery thing. No, you just look at the big things. And then if you really, really love it, you're like, yeah, yeah, I'm starting to take in more of the design. Like, oh, look at these beautiful gloves and how amazing they are. But they could have just been simple. Like if they didn't have these elements on them, they would have just been black gloves. And it wouldn't make the rest of the composite of the image and of the whole suit interesting. It would look like it's kind of off. Why is he wearing black gloves so plain with something so intricate? It just doesn't work. So yeah, that's how our brains work when it comes to silhouettes. And you have lots of let's go still to this one, like for example, mm, you take this chest piece, okay, and it comes with these straps also have their own elements that like for example these bolts here, and but you don't register them. Your brain just knows that it gives that shape definition that makes it much more richer for the brain to take it in at a first glance. Or this one, these little buttons, you didn't register them at first, but if they weren't here, these elements over here, you would know that the something would be off, something would be too bland here. There would be some space that would need to be filled with something. So it's the balance. of what you're looking at. If something has a lot of weight over here, but it's very light on details over here, it's gonna look off. Or maybe you're gonna say, yeah, it's incomplete, it's unfinished. So that's why I'm saying silhouettes can combine many, many, many things, especially if you nest them one on top of the other. And this is how we are starting to realize how we build 2D into 3D through silhouettes. Um, and you also have to look at how a shape is very, how should I call it? Not sharp, but very prominent, very strict, very, it stands out. Like, for example, we know it's a chest piece because it has that shape, that element that doesn't look like anything else other than what we recognize. Um, Even this one, we know that it's a spherical thing. You can look at a spacesuit that has an irregular shape, like maybe it's squarish in nature. It doesn't feel so associative to a spacesuit. It looks more like an alien spacesuit, or maybe something more akin to seeing in a laboratory rather than in space. So we associate meaning to shapes. Um, and we also have to make the shapes, although they look simple in nature, they can become rather complicated. And what I mean by that is if we look at our, where is the heli? If I remove the, oops, not like that. Where are you? Where are you? You see, this one has a lot of curves and a lot of things. And when I designed it, obviously I had to look at many angles and things like that until I finished creating one that pleased me. But it's important to know that you're also making your silhouettes from simple shape. Like here, you can make a circle, and then you can make a little rectangular shape or something like that, and so on. And you combine straight lines with curved ones. But in essence, it is a composite of shapes. And after you have finished it, then you build on top of it. Of course, there are many ways to approach it. This is not the only way, but I believe that this is the most efficient way, for me at least. Then what else can we take into account? We nest the silhouettes because you have different elements. So in my case, I could build everything within this, but I'll show you a different helicopter in a moment. Now, this one has nested shapes inside the silhouette. And let me see if I can, no, not this one. Let me group this and this one. So what do I mean by nested shapes? If I disable the body and the windows and this, we see that the wheels, this is the shape of the silhouette. Let me remove the color as well. Oh, I can't. This is the composite between two colors. So this is the original silhouette, and I've realized that the top part has to be, there's more light falling on the top part than on the bottom part. So then I decided to combine two silhouettes or two colors in the silhouette, the darker side and the lighter side. And this is to complement my gaps better because the uppers, I'll show you in a moment. For example, if I put the body back, you can see that doesn't look so great when you have this all this uniform dark color. But if I put this, it eases on the eyes. And then I realized, oh, these things could be nested inside my silhouette. So I've created a separate silhouette for the wheels inside this. and then I applied the wheels separately. And the same I did for the windows. Well, the windows are not really silhouettes, they're more like shapes. And other extremities, of course. And since, as I said, like if you have different components, like an assembly, try to make elements separate as well, like the propellers. And that's about it when it comes to shapes and doing silly mistakes like this. We're gonna make an interesting example in a moment. I know this video is gonna span to quite a lengthy time, but I think we'll exploring some interesting designs here. Yeah, I've added some blurring here and there to make this look like it's really flying. I'll create a composite later on, who knows. But anyway, um, there's a lot of mistakes here, and you cannot pick them up when you're looking at this from afar. If you go to zoom in, you're gonna start seeing, oh, this is not blending in so great, but it doesn't have to. The idea is to make mistakes because mistakes create interesting patterns. And when you're creating interesting patterns, it enriches your model. And even though obviously don't make mistakes that look wrong, try to make them fit in because they're bad mistakes and good mistakes. But usually they're good mistakes. They're very rarely bad mistakes, unless you're specifically going to make something very chaotic. And what do I mean by that? Let's say I go here and I want to, I don't know, let's say I want to create a shadow. I'm going to, let me put a bit of a build up. So I want to create this shadow like this. I know that the light might come from the top, so I'm gonna put it like this. And it's gonna look good at a first glance, because this is how shadows work, right? Then you can make a mistake like, I don't know, I've taken the shadow too much like this, but it's not a bad thing. You just have to work on your mistake till it gets some interesting shapes. Maybe I'm using a brush for my smudge tool that's too strong. Maybe I should lower it down, you know? You just experiment and do things like, oh, already it's looking like something interesting. I've made this weird line by accident, but I can use them to kind of define a 3D shape. And look, it's starting to look like something. It doesn't have to be, it's like sculpting basically, literally sculpting, because you're just using the color to sculpt the color and the shape of the color into something that looks pleasant to the eye. Just has to fool the eye that it's 3D, that it's looking like something interesting. And of course, you can go chaotic. Nobody said that there are rules that you have to follow. Sure, there are logical rules, like for example, if I want to add a shadow here on the top, then yeah, you can, but then you're kind of wondering where is the light coming? Is it like here? And there is always a little bit of shadow on the back, depending on how you're looking at this, what light sources are being applied, and so on. Maybe you want to add even a highlight. Why not? Let's add a highlight somewhere. Let me just use a brush though. And let's use, I don't know, I'll use something sparse like this. You want to add a highlight over here somewhere? Why not? What stops you to add a highlight? Just add whatever you feel like it's looking good. Just put a little bit of color and smudge it around and just sculpt it. See how it looks nice for you. And when in doubt, when you see that something doesn't blend in, just make little circles. That's what works for me, you know? Like with little circles, you can blend it in as much as you like. If you think something is too strong, either smudge it a little bit more to diffuse it on the edges, edges, or just use, as I always say, a little bit of a, let me get something smaller. Get a nice little eraser tool and just sculpt it this way. Maybe it's too much over here. Bam, 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 bam. You know? And when you look at it from a distance, like, oh, that looks kind of 3D-ish. So it fools the, well, this is a very organic form, but you can look at it like a piece of a finger, for example. Uh, I mean, a segment of a finger, or an elbow, or not elbow, uh, a shoulder, a human shoulder, if you want, or a saddle, or whatever you wish to think about it. Because right now we can create so many things. Like our eyes, our brains complement the missing information. So it can be a very nice artistic thing that we can build from here. Obviously, it takes quite a bit of time to invest into it to look even better. And but in my experience, the more loosely you draw and paint, and just leave a lot of mistakes in there, the better it looks. Because these artifacts, for example, here, I didn't focus too much. I don't know, I just pulled some strokes randomly, but it doesn't look too bad. Anyway, so this is one way to do it, of course. Many other techniques you can apply for yourself, but the point is for you to experiment. Don't just focus on one type of design or one type of technique, because you always have to zoom in and zoom out to see these errors, and only you see the errors because you are your biggest critic and you're always going to notice these errors there. But it's very important for you to leave those mistakes where you feel like they look okay. Don't freak out. Mistakes are nice. And there is even a saying in Japanese which is called wabi sabi, and it means to embrace the imperfection. And mm, you do not give up because you simply discover, I mean, on your design, don't give up. You simply discover new things that form out of these mistakes, and they can give out really awesome results in the end. You just have to push through with all of the mistakes and only make small corrections wherever you feel like it's not enough. For example, right now I can see right here I didn't correct this. I didn't erase the blur well enough here, or mask it, or hide it, or whatever. And but if I would add, let's say, a background like this, it's not gonna be noticeable, especially from a distance. So obviously the color is too bright here, but that's not important. We can correct this afterwards in color correction. But we've done pretty much most of the mistakes here. This one actually enhances the propeller a little bit, so it defines it better. But your brain doesn't pick it up, especially if you're a first-time viewer. What else? What else? What else? Let me think. Yeah, it's important that if you to not get carried away by how you're painting or creating designs, give your designs to your friends, and usually give it to the mean ones that are very critique of your artwork, and let them decimate it, because that kind of challenges you to try to make things the way they can imagine it, and to show them like, hey, look, I make your imagination come to life based on how you described it to me. Of course, this is also a communication skill, a better description of something. And usually friends know how to nitpick your design and say, I don't feel like this looks really well here. And perhaps sometimes you don't see that as a mistake. But for them, with a fresh view on something, they can easily pick up something that looks wrong. And then if you close it down like your design and come back to it, and then you look at it with a fresh eye, just like your friends, you're gonna kind of agree with them. It's like, yeah, that element could be moved or shifted away from there. Like, for example, if I would put, I don't know, Let's take something bright like so. If I would put something here, obviously this is gonna look off because this is in the dark area. But if I put it somewhere over here, this looks much better because it's in the lighter area. It makes much more sense to be here than down here. Although you could also combine it like this, but you have to know exactly what to do with this. This is more akin to glass work. Material, you get this material feeling later on as you play and get more experience. How do you get experience in all of these things? Because if you go on any tutorial video, they're like, you have to practice, 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 practice. Freaking practice. I hate practice. And the reality is like, no, that's not how you develop this experience. In my opinion, the best way is to be lazy. And yes, you have to be lazy to achieve this kind of designs that are very interesting. But not lazy like in not working at all. Lazy in approaching your design with an ease, like finding the shortcuts of designing something. Don't try to nitpick every little detail and to just like go into microscopic view here, and sometimes it helps, but do those at the end, all the way at the end. At first just do broad strokes, just make a mess out of it. It's gonna look chaotic, it doesn't matter. It's the final result that has to matter. So until the final result, try to define your silhouette, and defining a very sharp and well designed silhouette can finish your work 50% ahead of time. Then you just have to fill it in. And filling it in takes a little bit of trial and error here and there, but you will never mess it up because you're not going outside of the silhouette. And the silhouette is everything you need. If you have more components that you want to add on top of each other, make a separate silhouette and overlap it with your first one. It's not gonna hurt you. What else? What else? Yeah, make it look like it's flowing for the eye. Don't, if you're like, for example, making curves here, try to kind of follow the curves as well inside in your silhouette. Like, although you can choose whatever you want to do. You can force a squarish design or lots of sharp lines that interact with each other inside. If you can make it look good, sure, why not? But if you're going for a more fluid element, just try to follow the silhouette somehow. The silhouette is like helping you define these forms, these interior forms. What else? What else? Okay, let's do something interesting because we've talked a lot about how to do shapes and forms and things like this, but we haven't actually designed any silhouettes. So let's design a silhouette. And I'm gonna use a brush tool. And let's actually, first of all, let's make it like this. Transparent. I'm gonna put color over here. A background, a canvas color. Let's lock it. Whatever. Let's replace our It's Evil Experiment 2. Anyway, so let's say we're gonna take a brush that's gonna be more uniform. So let's go with something like, oh, I didn't select the brush. Let's select something like this, and let's select a color that's not so strong. Okay, and let's symmetrize it. Let's change the direction. Now I don't want to paint diagonally, so I'm gonna make it a mirror. And let's lock the mirror so we don't accidentally drag it. And now let's just paint something really weird, like make shapes. We're defining a silhouette right now. Let's just whatever, something simple. We're gonna make a spaceship. So We can make smaller details. Say that I want to make this like so. We can also change the direction. Maybe make some interesting things like this happening here. Maybe add a few elements like so. I don't know. This could be the engines. So we can make them like so. Let's add a little bit of extra details here. And I'll show you guys afterwards a much easier way to do silhouettes, which you will be laughing afterwards. So let's say that this is our shape, but don't go with just filled in shapes. Maybe you want to do something, I don't know. Let's take the eraser tool. If you want to do something interesting like this, make some patterns inside of it. Hop, hop, hop. You see how much we're gaining out of this? Like maybe, I also don't like this part. Maybe I want to, oops, to make something interesting like this. See, design your own. Designing your own tools. Well, maybe I don't like that. Let's bring it back a little. Oops. Can take you a very long way. I don't know. Where else? You just have to kind of balance it out. See what looks good where. So for example, here, I just realized maybe I want to have the cockpit underneath here. I'm just gonna take a new brush. I'm just gonna, well, let's make it a little bit more open in color. So we can have this. Now the cool thing, as I said, this is gonna be our silhouette, okay? So I'm gonna go inside and let's, well, maybe let's use something a bit more easy to follow along, like this. Let's make some shapes. They want to give it a bit of a volume. You see? Nothing too crazy. And I just want to showcase that, hey, this looks really, really nice when you look at it like that. Let's make it seem like there is a little bit of a gap here. I have to turn my thing. Now I have to zoom in, or maybe I can just leave it like this. Why not? Maybe I can combine this. Well, first of all, let me move this out. We can already see, oh, actually that doesn't look bad either. You see, happy accident. That's one version. Why not? Let's put it aside. I like it. I like it. Wait, it's control. Let's combine this with this and put it. Did I combine it? Actually, this also looks interesting, but So I want to combine this with this. No, this with this actually. So now let's put this one back. So we already have two ship designs just from the same element. We can group this, for example. Let's disable this. Let's continue here. For example, maybe, I don't know, I want to enhance the cockpit. So let's go with something a little bit. Let me make sure that I'm on the brush. Let's go with a little bit more lighter color. And actually, let me move to something a little bit more inorganic, like so. Let's make our cockpit over here. Okay, something like this. And let's make some smaller artifacts here and there. Let's say goes like, oh, this is a good example. Right now, we have this as our silhouette. But what if we want to make this as a silhouette as well? Maybe let me remove all of this. Because we can create a new interior silhouette just for this one. So we don't go outside of it. So for example, I'm just gonna use the same color and it seems I have done something. Okay, let's fix this. Let's bring this one back. Okay, how do we do this? Let's try selecting this. I'm gonna come back here. Yeah, I see what was the problem. Okay, let's no, not this color, this color. Let's complement this. You see? Perfect. Perfect lemon. And now I'm inside this. So let's continue making our, oops, actually why not? I like how it looks. So let's make some interesting designs here. Like for example, you see, I'm not going outside of the interior silhouette now. So I can make things like this. Maybe I want to make something more for this, more for this part. And we can also go with irregular designs. Well, that doesn't look too great. Let's say we make something for the engines. Actually, again, follow the shapes of the silhouette. It gives you so much information that you can follow up with. See, and our brain is already picking up some things, like some 3D-ish interpretations. We just have to kind of see what fits, what doesn't. Sometimes you just have to erase, start over, bring it back. Not everything is perfect from one simple line. You have to make many lines. And again, if you really think like something is amiss, you can make, can erase. Let me get a better brush. For example, maybe I want to put some negative space in here. I don't know. Maybe something like this. See? So much information can be earned. This can also be itself another silhouette inside. Oh, maybe that's too much. Maybe you can push it a little bit more like this. For the engines. I don't know. It's not working out. Yeah, that looks okay. Maybe this one also. Let's put it like so. So let's say maybe we want an irregular design. Let's say inside, although I'm gonna overcram it a little bit. But let's say we want to make it inside here. So I'm gonna go like so. I'm gonna take this. And let's disable our symmetry for now. And let's take, I don't know, something like so. I can go very easily. Oh, sorry, I didn't select the brush. Brush! Okay, we're on. Let's put it more like so. Okay, so I can easily. Well, maybe this color doesn't work too good. So maybe I want to have something here. You know, like a more predefined color on the side. Why not? We can also put it directly on this side, right? Let's put another one and let's take a more defined, definite approach like so. And oh, actually it has to be underneath it. See what I mean about assemblies? Shoot, I'm not drawing in the right layer. See? Really, really powerful thing. So we have so many things at our disposal. Let me just erase some of it in the parts that I do not like. Maybe I just don't like it. Oops. Maybe I don't like it here. So I'm just gonna remove it here. Maybe here as well because we're overlapping with the other red. But it gives us so much personality when we're building it like this. And then on top of it, like for example, we have some corners. We want to complement some things with a bit of let me try to make it like this. Like just a tiny bit of a highlight. Oops. Never mind. Let's try it like this. No, doesn't work on there. Just tiny highlights. Maybe here. And our brain already interprets it like this is one piece, this is another piece. Maybe here I can come for the cockpit and just give the impression of something like glass. Doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be something that we can build on, build after. Just, just an impression, just an idea of what it could be. And of course, more colors can be added and more anything. And we have one design. Of course, you can adjust the colors as you wish. But this design doesn't look bad either. It just needs more details as well. So you see how powerful this technique is to make silhouettes? Now let me show you a much more interesting way to make silhouettes. So, oh, and another thing, since this is a raster design, usually you will not resize it, because if we resize it, the pixel ratio is going to expand and it's gonna look very edgy and pixelated, obviously. So you can kind of bend the way designs work. So for example, if you want to introduce an object like this, for example, you can. Nobody stops you. This is a washer. What if I want to add this washer over here? What stops me? Nobody stops me. And let's blend it in a little. I don't know. Let's put it like so. If it improves our design, and if you can mix it up a little, or maybe blend it in better, why not? You can put whatever pattern you wish on top of it. Obviously, this comes into a more advanced kind of design, but the important thing is for you to experiment. There is no. Actually, this is interesting because if you constantly experiment with mistakes and with things that at a glance look fantastic, you will always define new techniques for yourself uh, to enhance in your future designs. And don't design every day. I think it's counterproductive for you to design every day. Take breaks. Like for me, if one day I feel like I'm not gonna be efficient in designing anything, I just take a break and I just do totally something else. And it's even healthy for you not to constantly design, because it skews your perspective on how you see things. If you're constantly designing the same things and you're getting frustrated and so on, try to design when you feel at peace, when you have the most inspirational moment. Obviously, don't leave huge gaps like weeks or something like that. Clearly, that's not going to help. But if you don't feel like painting at all or doing any design one day, just don't. Do something that is interactive for your brain. Designing and painting and making vector art and so on, everything has to be pleasant, has to be nice, it has to be, I don't know, you have to be happy when doing it. um, what did I want to say? I wanted to. Yeah, let me show you guys a really, really cool way to make designs, to make silhouettes. So let's take this engine and I'm gonna take the freehand tool. I'm just gonna try some designs here. Okay, maybe move it a little bit lower. I'm just gonna copy and let's go back to our evil scientist design here and paste it. Oops. Let me just hide the other ones. And we're going to have to make this one a little bit different. Maybe I don't like. Let me make the silhouette over here. Can I move it and make it smaller? Ah, snap. How do I don't know how to resize selections. I have zero idea how to resize. I'll just make it again. I felt like that was too bland. I need a little bit more elements. No, let's make something. Something like this. Yeah, that has a bit more color into it. So now all I want to do is just duplicate it, flip it horizontal, no, not horizontal, horizontally, yeah, and just move it somewhere like so. Maybe this isn't so great. Maybe we need to put it like this. Again. There we go. And we've designed ourselves a nice silhouette. And this technique, in my opinion, is very powerful because we get a little bit of the pattern from where we took it. Obviously, this is not the most intricate design. Let me look for something. Oh, okay, this one looks really nice. Let's do another one. Yeah, this one looks chunky. So let's try this silhouette again. Just random silhouettes. It doesn't have to be anything specific. Just gonna focus somewhere where I have more elements. Something like this. Well, maybe let me redefine it. Oops. No, not that one. Ah, well, whatever. Works. It works. Don't question it. So I'm going to go back. I feathered it. Damn it. That's not good. Let me try again. Okay, let's try this now. Much better. Perhaps the color is a bit too much. Let's put it on a darker. Yeah, something like this. But the point is, we already got some interesting silhouettes here. Now if I duplicate this, arrange, flip horizontally, bam bam bam, you can already see how powerful this design can be. Like for example, I can turn this like so. And from here I can just complement with other elements. But it kind of gives us that idea of where 3D things could be. And for example, this could have, because we can automatically translate this 2D into a 3D. And what do I mean by that? I can take, well, let me remove this. And let's disable this and this for now. So let's just say I'm gonna duplicate this. Come on, duplicate yourself. And let me just assemble everything into one. Oh, not everything. And now we can just kind of turn it like so and skew it. And of course, right now it's pretty isometric, but how did I don't know exactly how to manipulate the corners. Um, Maybe like this. Well, there is a way. I have no clue right now. Anyway, I wanted to put it more in perspective, but let's say we're gonna keep it like this for now. It's really cool that from here we can even transpose to a more how do I jeez Louise. I don't want to do that. Why is it transforming uniformly? I don't know what I'm doing here. Yeah. You can transpose this into a 3D, into elevated designs, because you can build up, for example, some helper lines, like something like you're designing some design, something like this, something like this, you know. You're giving yourself the orientation of how you build things, so you can just kind of imagine that things build up like this here, and then you have the cockpit over here somewhere, and then you kind of try to follow the silhouette. The silhouette is on the uh, right now I'm just scribbling over it, you know, like just to get an idea of how things look like. You have to put a little bit of elevation to kind of give it that impression. So yeah, you can build up pretty cool concept just from a 2D design. Of course, you could do a side design if you want. And of course, this can come over here like this. And you can take these shapes, like for example, this could be a separate part. And here as well. And then you can take this one to be a separate part that has these holes. And come all the way over here. So you see how amazing you can do some really cool art just from a simple silhouette. Of course, it takes a lot of, well, here there is quite a little bit of extra details that you would have to add. Sometimes you have to complement it yourself. And from here you just play along. Do whatever you feel like it looks natural to you. You see? Little details. Of course, this is just an amateur thing that I'm doing right now. And I'm not the best to teach you these things. You have to experiment. See what you like to do. Okay, I think we've achieved quite a lot today. And our experiments have proved quite beneficial. Uh, I don't know what I did here. I'm doing screenshots. Okay, so we did an hour and a half of just you watching me scribble weird things and telling you weird ideas of mine and giving you tips. That may or may not help you. You choose. I'm just sharing my experience. But I feel like you guys are always going to do superb art because, well, if you're here, you're awesome. Okay, guys, stay awesome, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Bye, 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 bye.